The phone rang at 3:12 p.m. on a Wednesday, and just like that, I knew my private life was about to become a public spectacle once more. "Clara, your ex-husband is online too." Madison's voice, sharp and syrupy, pierced the low hum of the office. It was like a starter pistol for a race I never wanted to run. Every keyboard fell silent. Every hushed conversation halted. 21 sets of eyes swiveled to my cubicle, their gazes a mix of pity and morbid curiosity, as if I were a particularly slow-motion car crash. My hands shook as I reached for the receiver. It wasn't my ex, of course. It was my lawyer, Matthew, calling about the revised custody schedule. But Madison never let facts get in the way of a good story. She lived for the drama, the daily theater of watching me crumble from the throne of her reception desk. "Just take a message, please," I mouthed. But she was already turning away, probably to touch up her lip gloss and prepare for her next announcement. When my separation began 9 months ago, I had made a solemn vow to myself. I would keep my work life and my personal life completely separate. I would be the consummate professional, composed and impervious. I'd wear my sharpest blazers, perfect my neutral expression. No one would ever see the cracks. No one would know that I often cried in my car during my lunch hour, or that I'd recently started stashing a family-sized box of tissues in my bottom desk drawer. But Madison saw right through it. She had an almost supernatural sense for weakness, like a shark smelling blood in the water. The first time she broadcast my personal affairs, I assumed it was a careless mistake. "Clara, your husband's attorney is holding," she'd bellowed across the open plan office. I felt a hot flush creep up my neck as I tried to stammer out an explanation to my confused coworkers that, no, it was all fine, just some routine paperwork. That evening, I rehearsed what I would say to her. I'd use words like professional boundaries, confidentiality, and basic human decency. But when I stood before her desk the next morning, she gazed up at me with those cold, crystalline eyes and offered a smile that suggested she was doing me an immense favor. "Oh, honey, I'm just trying to help make sure you don't miss anything important," she'd cooed, her voice thick with false sympathy. "I know how frazzled you've been." Frazzled. The word stung like a slap. But she wasn't wrong. I was frazzled. I was missing deadlines, misplacing files, arriving at work with my blouse buttoned incorrectly. The divorce was consuming me from the inside out, and this 24-year-old receptionist with her perfectly manicured nails and a cruel, knowing smile had figured out precisely where to stick the knife and twist. The calls became a daily performance. Matthew would phone about mediation dates, and Madison would announce, "Clara's ex wants to talk again." My financial advisor would call about splitting assets, and she'd trill, "Another lawyer for Clara on line 1. Each public declaration felt like I was being forced to stand in the middle of a crowded mall while strangers pointed and whispered about my failures. But the calls weren't even the worst part. The worst part was seeing the shift in my colleagues' expressions. Deborah from accounting started peering at me over her glasses with a look of profound pity. Brian from the IT department would awkwardly pat my arm and ask if I was hanging in there in the same hushed tone one uses for the terminally ill. Even my boss, Mr. Peterson, began to speak to me as if I were a fragile piece of glass, his voice carefully modulated to avoid any sudden movements that might cause me to shatter. About 3 weeks into Madison's campaign of psychological torture, she took it to a new level. I was in the break room, trying to summon the energy to make a cup of tea, when I overheard her speaking to Lisa from payroll in a loud stage whisper. "So, is he still giving you a hard time on the child support? I mean, what kind of monster tries to cheap out on his own kids?" The mug I was holding slipped from my grasp, shattering on the tile floor. Hot tea splashed over my slacks and shoes, but I barely registered the burn. All I could feel was the blood pounding in my ears and the sound of Lisa's uncomfortable little laugh. "Oh, Clara, I didn't see you standing there," Madison said, her eyes gleaming with unconcealed delight. "I was just telling Lisa how awful it must be to have to beg for every dollar. Men can be such cheapskates when it comes to divorce, right? I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that Mark wasn't fighting me on child support. He was fighting for more weekends with the kids, that the lawyers were debating visitation rights, not money, that she was broadcasting a fictionalized, cruel version of my life to the entire office. Instead, I just knelt and started picking up the broken shards of ceramic with trembling fingers. "Here, let me help you," Madison said, crouching beside me, her voice loud enough for the whole room to hear. "You know, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. Divorce is just so tough, especially when there are children involved." She was putting on a show again, playing the role of the compassionate friend while grinding the knife in deeper. I looked up at her face, so young, so perfectly made up, so utterly devoid of genuine empathy, and I saw a piece of paper taped to the side of the break room refrigerator, just behind her. I saw a spreadsheet, a list of names. I squinted. The words swam into focus. Clara's breakdown betting pool. Below it, a list of predictions. Cries at her desk. 2 weeks, Madison, $10. Quits without giving notice. 1 month, Brian, $5. Fired for poor performance. 6 weeks, Lisa, $15. Full-blown nervous breakdown. 3 weeks. Anonymous, $20. The list had 12 names on it. 12 people I had worked alongside for 3 years. People who had asked about my kids' science fairs and my father's health. People who had shared cake with me at my last promotion party. They were placing bets on my emotional collapse. My hands stopped shaking. My vision cleared. All the hurt and confusion I'd been feeling for months evaporated, replaced by a cold, crystalline certainty. I took a photo of the list with my phone. Then I walked straight to the Human Resources Department. "I need to file a formal complaint about workplace harassment," I told Ms. Henderson, sliding a printout of the photo onto her desk. She examined it for a full minute, her expression unchanging, then looked up at me with the weary resignation of someone who'd just been asked to defuse a bomb with a pair of tweezers. "Clara, I know you're going through a lot right now," she began, her tone meticulously neutral. "But this just looks like some harmless office fun, perhaps even a misguided attempt at showing support." Support. The word came out of my mouth like a shard of glass. "They are gambling on when I will have a nervous breakdown." "I think you might be misinterpreting their intentions," she continued smoothly. "Madison mentioned to me that people are just concerned. Sometimes humor is how people process difficult situations." I just stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. This woman, surrounded by motivational posters of kittens hanging from tree branches, was actually defending a betting pool on my mental health. "So you're saying this is an acceptable form of behavior in this company?" "I'm saying that workplace dynamics can be complicated, especially during times of personal transition. Perhaps we could look into some stress management resources for you. I have an excellent pamphlet on mindfulness." I walked out of her office holding nothing but a photocopy of a mindfulness pamphlet and the gut-wrenching realization that I was utterly and completely on my own. The next morning, Madison's smirk was radiant. She knew I had reported her, and she knew with absolute certainty that nothing would be done about it. "Morning, Clara," she chirped as I walked past her desk. "How are we holding up today?" The question was innocent on the surface, but I heard the real message loud and clear. I own you. I can do whatever I want, and no one here will ever stop me. That night, sitting in my half-empty apartment after Mark had taken most of the furniture, I understood that I had 2 choices. I could quit, find a new job, and start over somewhere I wasn't known as the sad divorcee, or I could fight back. The idea started as a tiny spark of rebellion in the vast emptiness of my anger. What if I could use Madison's own cruelty against her? What if I could make her the star of her own public humiliation? I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't dialed in over a decade. Zoe Chang, my college roommate, a certified tech wizard, and the only person I knew who appreciated the finer points of both coding and vengeance. It was time to change the rules of the game. Zoe's voice, lively and crackling, came through my phone at 11:52 p.m., just 4 minutes after I sent the desperate text. Need your help with something insane? Are you still a computer genius? Clara Evans? I haven't heard from you in 10 years, and your first move is a cryptic text about computers near midnight? Her laugh was exactly as I remembered it. Warm, a little raspy, and full of the kind of mischief that used to get us into trouble. This better be good. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I actually smiled. Remember how you allegedly hacked into the university's server to change our grades in that philosophy class? Allegedly, she corrected me, and I could hear the grin in her voice. And I prefer the term unauthorized penetration testing. But yeah, I'm still in tech. I run my own web development agency now. So, what kind of chaos are you plotting? The story came pouring out of me. Every humiliating announcement, the condescending pity, the betting pool, Ms. Henderson's dismissal, everything I had been shouldering alone for months. Zoe listened patiently, her silence punctuated only by occasional sounds of disgust. When I finally finished, the line was quiet for a long moment. "That absolute monster," she said finally, her voice cold with a controlled rage. "Clara, this isn't just petty office drama. This is a systematic campaign of psychological abuse. She's been dismantling your professional standing and mental well-being for sport." "I know," I whispered, "but I don't know what to do. I need this job. I need the insurance for my kids. And HR apparently thinks a breakdown betting pool is a team-building exercise." "Oh, we are going to do something about it," Zoe said, and I heard the faint clicking of a keyboard in the background. "But first, I need a large coffee and a proper strategy session. Are you free tomorrow morning?" And that's how I found myself in a small downtown cafe at 7 a.m., nursing a latte and watching my old roommate morph into a Machiavellian mastermind. Zoe hadn't changed much. She still had the same sharp, angular haircut, the same intelligent eyes behind stylish glasses, the same habit of gesturing wildly when she got excited. But she now carried herself with a quiet, steely confidence born from years of thriving in a male-dominated industry. "All right, here's our situation," she said, opening a sleek laptop next to a notepad already covered in meticulous diagrams. "Madison is a classic workplace bully. She gets away with it because she's young, attractive, and knows how to flirt with the right people in management. She believes she's untouchable. She basically is," I said. "Miss Henderson made that very clear. Wrong. She's untouchable inside your office building. But what if we create a scenario where her own ambition becomes the instrument of her downfall?" Zoe's fingers began to fly across the keyboard. "Tell me about her. What does she want more than anything?" I thought about the snippets of conversation I'd overheard, the constant bragging, status, recognition. She's always talking about how this job is beneath her, how she deserves to be in a corner office. She name-drops luxury brands, talks about her networking at fancy bars, and her social media is a wasteland of inspirational business quotes. "Perfect," Zoe declared. "So she's ambitious, image-obsessed, and likely feels underpaid. What's her background? Community college, associate's degree in business admin. She brings it up anytime someone treats her like, just a receptionist." Zoe's fingers danced over the keys. "Excellent. Just enough education to be overconfident, but not enough real-world experience to spot a sophisticated trap. What would be her fantasy job?" I considered it. Something in corporate communications or client relations. She's always saying she's the face of the company and that she could do our marketing director's job with her eyes closed. Client relations it is. Zoe swiveled the laptop screen toward me. "Say hello to Aspen Ridge Financial, our brand new, completely fictional boutique investment firm." The website was already materializing. It was slick, minimalist, and featured stock photos of impossibly good-looking people shaking hands in sun-drenched boardrooms. The color palette was a specific shade of deep navy blue that screamed old money without being ostentatious. "How are you doing this so fast?" I asked, mesmerized. "I've been building websites for a living for 12 years, Clara. This is like breathing, except the air is made of code and sweet, sweet revenge." She paused, her expression turning serious. Are you absolutely sure you want to go through with this? Because once we set this in motion, there's no turning back. I thought about the betting pool. I thought about Madison's triumphant smirk. I thought about the crushing weight of her daily cruelty. I'm sure. Good. Because I've been itching to use my powers for something other than optimizing e-commerce checkout flows. Over the next 2 hours, we built the perfect mousetrap. Aspen Ridge Financial became a highly exclusive consulting firm catering to ultra-high net worth individuals. Zoe registered the domain, populated a series of professional-looking social media profiles, and even set up a temporary business phone number that routed directly to her personal cell. The job description we crafted was a symphony of corporate buzzwords: executive client liaison, $90,000 to $100,000 base salary, plus performance-based bonuses, seeking a dynamic, polished professional to serve as the primary point of contact between our elite clientele and senior partners. The ideal candidate must possess superlative communication skills, an impeccable professional demeanor, and the ability to exercise absolute discretion in a high-stakes environment. That salary is going to make her lose her mind, I noted as Zoe polished the job posting. That's the entire point. It's just high enough to feel like the big break she thinks she deserves, but not so high it screams scam. Zoe then created a LinkedIn profile for one Eleanor Vance, the fictional senior HR director at Aspen Ridge, complete with a stock photo of a distinguished-looking woman in her 50s. Meanwhile, my job was to observe. I noticed Madison was spending more and more time on job search websites, barely bothering to hide her screen. She had started dressing differently, too. More blazers, fewer trendy tops. She's definitely on the hunt, I reported to Zoe during a hushed phone call. Yesterday, she was printing her resume on the office's nice letterhead paper. Perfect timing. Eleanor Vance is about to be very impressed by Madison's qualifications. The plan was deceptively simple. We'd have Eleanor reach out to Madison directly via a professional networking site, flattering her with a personalized message. If she took the bait, Zoe, posing as Eleanor, would schedule a video interview. And after the interview, I asked? We offer her the job, of course, with a start date 2 weeks out. Just enough time for her to quit her current role and burn every last bridge. And then, Zoe's smile was pure, unadulterated wickedness. Then, Aspen Ridge Financial experiences sudden, unforeseen budget cuts and has to rescind the offer. Terribly unfortunate, very last minute, and profoundly embarrassing for someone who has already broadcasted their big career move to the entire world. I stared at her, a cocktail of awe and terror bubbling in my stomach. Zoe, that's genuinely evil. Thank you, she said. I've been workshopping my villain origin story. That evening, Eleanor Vance sent Madison a carefully worded message. Hello, Madison. Your profile came across my desk via a recommendation, and I was incredibly impressed. We have an opening that seems tailor-made for someone with your ambition and presentation skills. I would love to connect and discuss the opportunity. By 8 a.m. the next day, Madison had replied with her resume, a gushing cover letter, and a request for a call at your earliest convenience. She's hooked, Zoe texted me. This is going to be even easier than I thought. I watched Madison all day. She kept checking her phone, a little smile playing on her lips. She sat up straighter. When our actual HR director, Ms. Henderson, walked past, Madison practically leaped from her chair to engage her in vapid small talk about the weather. She's already gone, I told Zoe that night. She's acting like she's a visitor here from a higher plane of existence. Excellent. Time for phase 2. The video interview was set for Thursday evening. After hours, of course, Eleanor Vance had explained in her email, as discretion is paramount in our line of work. Zoe had borrowed a friend's vacant office downtown, a corner suite with tasteful art and a panoramic city view. I sat in my car in the parking garage below, listening in on speakerphone as Zoe conducted the interview. Through the window, I could see Madison on the screen, perched on the edge of her chair in a new suit, nodding and gesturing with an almost comical level of enthusiasm. Tell me about a time you had to handle a difficult individual at work, Zoe said in her Eleanor voice, a tone that was slightly deeper and more polished than her own. Well, in my current role, I deal with challenging personalities all the time, Madison replied, her voice practically vibrating with self-importance. Just recently, we had an employee going through a very messy, very public divorce, and her constant drama was really bringing down the entire office morale. I took it upon myself to manage the situation, making sure she understood that her personal issues were negatively impacting everyone else's productivity. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Even in a job interview for a fake job, she couldn't resist bragging about tormenting me. That demonstrates real leadership potential, Zoe responded without missing a beat. How did your superiors react to your proactive approach? Oh, they were very supportive. I think they appreciated having someone on the front lines who isn't afraid to have those uncomfortable conversations. I'm really seen as the gatekeeper of the office culture. The interview lasted for another 20 minutes, with Madison painting herself as a misunderstood genius being held back by incompetent colleagues and mediocre management. She shared confidential client information, complained about our company's salary structure, and essentially provided enough ammunition to have her fired 10 times over. Madison, you sound like exactly the kind of person we're looking for, Zoe said finally. I think you would be a tremendous asset to Aspen Ridge Financial. How does a start date of next Monday work for you? I could see Madison's face light up on the screen. That's perfect. I'll give my notice tomorrow morning. Wonderful. I'll have the official offer letter in your inbox by tonight. As soon as the call ended, Zoe rang me back. Holy hell, Clara, she's even more of a monster than you described. Did you hear her? She was literally framing her bullying as a management skill. I heard every word I said. Good. Because now I don't feel a shred of guilt about what's coming next. Neither did I. Friday morning began with an email that made my coffee taste like pure triumph. The subject line read, Official Offer of Employment, Aspen Ridge Financial. I watched from my cubicle as Madison read it on her phone, her face breaking into a look of absolute ecstasy. She didn't even wait for a private moment. Mr. Peterson, she called out, practically skipping toward our manager's glass-walled office. Do you have a moment? I need to speak with you about my career trajectory. I pretended to be engrossed in a spreadsheet, but I was listening to every word that filtered through the thin walls. Incredible opportunity. Prestigious firm. They recruited me personally, nearly double my current salary. Mr. Peterson's replies were muffled, but I caught phrases like standard 2 weeks notice and help with the transition. When Madison emerged 10 minutes later, she looked like she had just won the lottery and been crowned queen of the world in the same afternoon. Well, everyone, she announced to the silent office, I have some rather exciting news to share. No one had asked, but we were all her captive audience. I've been offered an executive position at Aspen Ridge Financial. They headhunted me for my expertise in client relations. She paused, letting the fabricated achievement hang in the air. My last day will be next Friday. The reactions were a mixed bag. A few polite congratulations, some awkward smiles, and several knowing glances exchanged between the members of her little betting pool. I managed a look of what I hoped passed for shocked disappointment. Wow, Madison, that's so sudden, I said, proud of the steadiness in my voice. Well, Clara, she replied, her smile sharp enough to draw blood, when a great opportunity comes knocking, you don't leave it waiting. Some of us are just destined for bigger things. But Friday was only the appetizer. Monday was the main course. Madison arrived an hour early, carrying 3 large pink bakery boxes and wearing a power suit I'd never seen before. The cupcakes were monuments to spite, each one frosted with edible silver glitter and nestled in a custom wrapper that read, "So long, peasants," in an elegant script. I thought we should celebrate, she declared, arranging them on the break room counter like a general laying out battle plans. It's not every day you get to witness a true success story up close. Deborah from accounting picked one up, her brow furrowed as she read the wrapper. Peasants? Seriously? Oh, it's just a little inside joke, Madison laughed, a sound as brittle as spun sugar. You know, like something Marie Antoinette would have said before upgrading to a much nicer palace. The historical inaccuracy was staggering, but no one bothered to correct her. We were all too stunned by the sheer audacity of it all. Brian from IT took a bite. Wow, these are very sweet. Everything about today is sweet, Madison replied, before embarking on what I can only describe as a farewell tour of condescension. She spent the morning drifting from department to department, ostensibly to say her goodbyes, but actually to deliver personalized parting shots disguised as compliments. To the accounting team, I'll miss working with such detail-oriented people. Not everyone is cut out for high-level corporate strategy, but you all do such vital work. To the customer service reps, I just hope my replacement can uphold the professional standard I've set. These phones can be so tricky if you don't possess natural people skills. To the marketing department, I've learned so much about the fundamentals of promotion here. It will be fascinating to see how real marketing operates at the executive level. Each statement was a masterclass in the art of the backhanded compliment. By lunchtime, the mood in the office had curdled from awkwardness to a simmering, collective resentment. But Madison was oblivious, floating on a cloud of her own fictional success. The grand finale of her tour came around 3:30 p.m. She appeared at my cubicle holding a small, perfectly wrapped gift, her face arranged in an expression of theatrical pity that made my stomach turn. "Clara, I wanted to give you this before I go." She placed the gift on my desk with the solemnity of a queen bestowing a favor. "It's just a little something to help you with, well, everything." I unwrapped it slowly, acutely aware that at least half the office was watching. Inside was a book, Emotional Fortitude, Bouncing Back from Life's Setbacks. A bookmark was neatly placed at Chapter 4, When Personal Problems Impede Professional Performance. I thought it might be helpful, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "So you can maybe handle your private calls with a little more discretion." She leaned in even closer. "And maybe you can finally cry in the bathroom in peace, huh?" The words were meant to be a final, devastating blow. But instead of the familiar sting of humiliation, I felt a strange sense of calm. I knew something she didn't. I knew her finish line was actually the edge of a cliff, and she was sprinting towards it with a triumphant smile. I looked up at her and smiled back, a genuine, mysterious smile that made her frown. "I'm sure everything will work out exactly the way it's supposed to," I said. At 5 p.m. on the dot, she made her grand exit. Mr. Peterson emerged to collect her ID badge and keys. She gave him an awkward, one-armed hug he clearly did not want. Then she picked up the small cardboard box containing her personal effects, a few framed photos, a Girl Boss mug, and a desk calendar of inspirational quotes. "Well, peasants," she announced one last time, "it's been real. Don't be strangers. I'll try to remember you all when I'm making the big plays downtown." The elevator doors closed on her smug wave, and a collective, audible sigh of relief swept through the office. "Did she really just call us peasants again?" Brian asked the room. "Twice," Deborah confirmed, and she gave Clara a self-help book about being an emotional wreck. "What a piece of work," someone muttered. But I wasn't listening. I was already texting Zoe. "The Eagle has left the building. Phase 3 is a go." That evening, Zoe and I met at the co-working space she had rented for the week under the Aspen Ridge financial name. It was in a legitimate high-end office tower with a marble lobby and a silent, high-speed elevator. For a few $100s, we had a temporary office on the 14th floor, just long enough to make the illusion airtight. Zoe had thought of everything. A professional nameplate on the door read Aspen Ridge Financial, Client Services. Inside, she'd arranged minimalist furniture and placed official-looking binders with fake client names on the shelves. "This looks disturbingly real," I said, running a hand over the faux mahogany desk. "That's the point," Zoe said, arranging blank papers into folders. If anyone had done a shred of due diligence, we'd have passed a cursory inspection. But of course, Madison was too blinded by the dollar signs to ask any real questions. The final touch was mine. I sat at the fake desk and wrote a welcome note in my neatest cursive. "Welcome to Aspen Ridge, Madison. We are so thrilled to have you join the team. Please make yourself comfortable. Eleanor Vance will be with you shortly to begin your orientation. There's coffee in the kitchenette, and your welcome packet is on the desk. Congratulations on the new role." I signed it, the Aspen Ridge team, and placed it in the center of the desk where she couldn't miss it. "Tomorrow should be fun," Zoe said as she locked the door behind us. "Tomorrow," I replied, "is going to be perfect." Monday morning dawned bright and clear. I set myself up at a window table at a coffee shop directly across the street from the gleaming office tower where Madison's new life was supposed to begin. Zoe arrived at 8:15 with 2 lattes and a laptop. "I've got a live feed of the building's public lobby cam," she announced, angling the screen so we could both see. "Completely legal. It's for security purposes." At precisely 8:47 a.m., Madison's car pulled into a visitor spot. We watched as she checked her reflection, reapplied her lipstick, and smoothed down her new blazer. She looked magnificent in her delusion, striding into the lobby with the unshakable confidence of a CEO. On Zoe's laptop, we saw her speak to the security guard, gesture toward the elevators, and then nod as he presumably waved her through. "How long do you think it'll take?" I asked, checking my watch. It was 8:52 a.m. Depends. If she's smart, she'll start getting suspicious in 10 minutes. If she's as arrogant as we think, she might sit up there for half an hour waiting for Eleanor to arrive. At 9:07 a.m., Madison reappeared on the sidewalk. Her confident posture had vanished, replaced by a hesitant, confused shuffle. She stood staring up at the building, then pulled out her phone. "First call," Zoe narrated like a sports announcer, "trying to reach Eleanor Vance." Through the coffee shop window, I could see her expression shift from confusion to frustration. She hung up and dialed again. The number now goes straight to a "this line has been disconnected" message, Zoe explained with a grin. Madison paced in a tight circle, then marched back inside to the security desk. We saw the guard shaking his head, pointing at his computer, making a call of his own. When he hung up, his expression was final. He's telling her there's no record of an Aspen Ridge Financial in the building's tenant directory, I guessed, and suggesting she check the address. That's when Madison pulled out her phone again, but this time she was typing, not calling, Googling the company name. 3, 2, 1. Zoe counted down. We watched as Madison's face went through a rapid series of emotions. Confusion, disbelief, dawning horror, and then finally the precise moment of sickening realization. "She found the dog shelter," Zoe said with grim satisfaction. Our meticulously crafted website for Aspen Ridge Financial now redirected to the homepage of the Riverside County Animal Shelter, featuring adorable photos of adoptable puppies. Anyone searching for the company would find themselves staring into the hopeful eyes of a golden retriever, Mix named Buddy. Madison froze on the sidewalk, phone in hand. She looked up at the building, back at her phone, and then around her, as if expecting a hidden camera crew to jump out. After a few more frantic, failed phone calls, she retreated to her car, where she sat with the door open, hunched over her laptop. "This is the best part," Zoe said softly. "Right now, she's discovering it was all a ghost. The LinkedIn profiles have vanished. The job posting is gone. Every digital crumb of her dream job has evaporated. But there was one very real thing waiting for her." "How long until she remembers the welcome packet?" I asked. She didn't have to. After 20 minutes of frantic searching in her car, Madison marched back into the building one last time. She was gone for nearly 10 minutes. When she emerged, she was clutching the manila folder we had left on the desk. "She found our little gift," Zoe murmured. Even from across the street, I could see the color drain from Madison's face. She stood on the sidewalk, reading the contents of the folder, and with every second that passed, she seemed to shrink. "What exactly did you put in there?" I asked. The printout of the betting pool, Zoe said, with all the names and the dollar amounts circled, and a small anonymous note that said, "Maybe next time you won't gamble on someone else's pain." Madison looked around wildly, her eyes scanning the street, the windows, searching for the architect of her humiliation. Her gaze swept right past our coffee shop window, but she was looking for a powerful enemy, not a former victim. She finally got back in her car, but this time she was shouting into her phone, gesticulating wildly, trying to explain the unexplainable to someone on the other end. The beauty of this, Zoe said, watching her, is that she can never tell the whole story. If she claims she was scammed, she has to admit she quit a stable job for a fantasy offer she never bothered to verify. If she tries to claim she was targeted, she has to explain why someone would go to such elaborate lengths to destroy her. Either way, she ends up looking like a fool or a monster who got what she deserved. At 10:23 a.m., Madison finally drove away. I never saw her again. But word of her amazing new job mysteriously falling through trickled back to our office. The best part came 2 months later, when Brian from IT mentioned he'd heard a story from a friend at another firm. They'd apparently interviewed a woman who spent half the time trying to explain how she was the victim of an elaborate, targeted employment scam. Made her sound completely unhinged, he said, shaking his head. They politely showed her the door. Her own paranoia had burned her last bridge. The first thing I noticed when I walked into work the Tuesday after Madison's departure was the silence. Not the tense, anxious silence we had grown used to, but a peaceful, relaxed quiet. Linda was humming at her desk. Brian had his headphones off. It was amazing how the removal of one toxic element could change the entire ecosystem. Over the next few weeks, people came to me, one by one, with confessions. "I knew what she was doing to you," Brian admitted, his eyes full of shame. "And I did nothing. I was a coward." I learned that Madison's reign of terror had been far more widespread than I had known. She had spread rumors, lost important messages, and systematically undermined half a dozen people, always making each victim feel like they were the only one. Armed with these stories, I drafted a 15-page anonymous report to our regional manager, detailing Madison's behavior and HR's failure to act. The response was immediate. Within a month, Ms. Henderson was reassigned, and the company launched a new workplace wellness initiative. Mr. Peterson asked me to be on the committee. 6 months earlier, I was the office pity case. Now I was helping rewrite company policy. I had started seeing a therapist, Dr. Miller, who helped me understand something crucial. "You spent so long making yourself small to avoid causing trouble," she told me. "Madison's cruelty, as painful as it was, forced you to finally take up space in your own life." My friendship with Zoe deepened. We spoke every week, sharing stories of our lives. "You know," she said one evening, "I think I learned as much from planning your revenge as you did from living it. Turns out I'm really good at strategic problem solving when I'm motivated." "You should start a business," I joked. "Karma Consulting. We solve toxic workplace problems." We both laughed, but the thought stuck with me. Not the revenge part, but the problem-solving part. The finality of it all came quietly, on a Thursday afternoon almost a year later. I was cleaning out my desk drawer, and my fingers brushed against a folded piece of paper. It was a copy of the note I'd left for Madison. "Maybe next time you won't gamble on someone else's pain." Looking at the words, I didn't feel triumph. I felt a sense of gentle closure. The woman who wrote that note was angry and hurt, but she was also strategic and strong. I folded the paper and put it back. It wasn't a trophy. It was a bookmark marking the page where one chapter of my life ended and a much better one began. The revenge had been a bridge from who I was to who I was becoming. But the real victory was discovering I didn't need to stay on that bridge. I could cross it, set it down, and walk into a quieter, more peaceful life that belonged completely to me. End of story.